Everybody, welcome to the first virtual Oracle JET Meetup. We are really pleased and impressed that so many of you have joined with us today. And we intend for this to be the first of the first meetup, and we're planning to hold 3 or 4 of these per year. So we don't want to do too many, we don't want to do too few, we want to keep it special and on the basis per year. Now, I will have more live interactive people attend than we'll have this round. On the other hand, we've just spent an hour chatting with people, so maybe we want to continue doing it like this. We could have 1 hour of just informal get-together and formal program beginning the way it's actually happening right now. So we want these meetups to be an opportunity for discussing and sharing insights around JET. And since this is the first of these meetups, we want to focus in particular on sharing with you information about the upcoming release called JET 6.0, which is coming out in a couple of weeks. With JB Brock, the Senior Product Manager of JET, is going to take about 15 minutes of this session to talk in particular about the new support for Typescript and Webpack, and it will be demos, so you'll see live coding that he'll be doing. And if you have any questions at any stage, please just feel free to ask them on Twitter using the Oracle JET Twitter handle. And Twitter is really the primary way in which we're announcing new developments and features and so on. So it's a really good idea to follow us on Twitter at Oracle JET if you haven't been doing so already. So please join up there. If you like, you can also ask questions in the Zoom chat during the meetup. So after JB has shown you the cool features coming up in the next release, you're going to see a number of very short overviews of sessions and tips that will be presented at OpenWorld and at CodeOne in a few weeks' time in San Francisco. So I'm going to just switch. So as you can see here, hopefully you can see this screen. There's a really long list of topics coming up at CodeOne and at OpenWorld dealing with JET. And
yeah, it hasn't loaded yet. Hasn't loaded yet, Gerhjan. We're still looking at a blank screen right now.
That's fine. That's fine. So I'm basically scrolling through a screen, so it's fine if you can't see the details. But the point is, we're going to publish a program for anyone to follow who goes to OpenWorld and at CodeOne, so that you can see which sessions on JET and also on V are going to be happening there. And some of the speakers from OpenWorld and CodeOne are actually here in this meetup, and they're going to very quickly share in about 5 minutes each. And I'm going to have to be very strict there if they take too much time, what they will be talking about. And that's really the remainder of the program for this meetup. Now just to switch back again to the slides. Aside from OpenWorld and CodeOne, there's also coming up the Tech Experience, the UK OUG conference in Liverpool in December. And there's basically a JET track at that conference. And in particular, what you should notice there is that several organizations using JET will be presenting their use cases and talking about the benefits they have gained from using JET. So just like at CodeOne and OpenWorld, you'll see Capgemini there. You'll see Capgemini as well in the Tech Experience, and Griffiths Waite will be in both organizations. You'll see Co-op presenting in both. So you'll see a lot of users and customers of JET talking about what they have done with it. I'm now switching to another slide. So it's going to take a while for it to load, but I'm just going to talk through it. So some people who are in this meetup, I'm sure, are new to JET. So just to give a very brief summary of what it's about. For those of you new to JET, basically JET is Oracle's JavaScript extension toolkit. It defines Oracle's strategy for doing client-side JavaScript development. It consists of patterns, templates, architectures, components such as graphs and charts, and it's focused on providing a stable basis for front-end JavaScript development. It is used all over Oracle as well as beyond in the Oracle ecosystem and beyond that as well, as the speakers that you will hear from today will illustrate. There is a on the JET homepage on oraclejet.org, you will see that there is a success stories page. And if your organization makes use of JET, you would like to highlight that use case. And each of the buttons that you see here are probably still loading. Beneath each of these buttons, you will find a long story with screenshots showing you what these organizations have done with JET. So these are all applications in production. And you get a quote.
It just now came up, so hold there for a bit.
It's fine. Anyone can go to the Oracle JET page, click on success stories, and you will see all these different organizations making use of JET and talking here about what they're doing with it. We're going to try and squeeze everything into an hour. It's going to be a stretch. It's going to be a push. So having introduced all the topics, all the topics we want to deal with today, I'm going to hand over to JB, who's going to talk about new features in JET 6.0. So JB, please take the floor.
All right, thanks, Gerhjan. I'll hopefully my sharing is going to go a little bit smoother. Let's see if my screen will not lag quite as much. And I'll hand over the chat to you, Gerhjan, while I'm doing the talk here and the code.
Right.
So with JET 6 is due out next Monday. So the 15th of October is the date that we are scheduled to release on, and we're on track for that. For those of you that are enterprising hackers and know how to mess around with URLs, you'll have probably noticed already that JET 6 is already up on the CDN, and you can mess with it up there. But for the general public, the website will switch over, and the NPM process and all that kind of stuff for installing the latest and greatest will happen sometime over the weekend and be completely available on Monday. So the 15th will be our 23rd consecutive release on time, on schedule. It's something that we are extremely proud of, that we can deliver on a very consistent and predictable release schedule. We think that that's extremely important, not only for the 100+ commercial applications that Oracle produces that are all built on JET, but also for our customers and our partners that rely on us and expect us to have a very consistent delivery schedule. So today, what we wanted to talk about really quick, and I'm going to demo is very quickly, probably too quickly for details, but I'll demo it, is what we're doing in 6.0 and what we're doing specifically with Webpack and Typescript. Now, for those that have messed with JET at a high level, Webpack and Typescript, you've been able to use them with JET forever. Maybe there's never been anything in JET that stopped you from using these, specifically or especially TypeScript. Webpack had some limitations in working with JET, and that's one of the things we're taking care of in this release. But really with JET, if you really know what you're doing and you're really, you know what you're doing in a JavaScript world, it kind of came down to, oh, and there definitely is a lag going here, isn't there? If you really know what you're doing, things look really pretty when you do them, and you can make things come out really nicely. But for most of us, when we started to do this stuff, it was actually more of a painful situation. And so we decided that we needed to look into these two environments and try and make them much less painful. And to that end, we'll jump over to some code. So when we started to look at Webpack specific, we'll start there. This is just a standard JET starter template. There's nothing special about this. It's got the normal, I did the OJET create using the CLI and so forth. And if I run this application, I can do an OJET serve, and it will build it and serve it. And I want to show you a little bit really quick when this serves up as to what JET does today and why we haven't used Webpack from the very beginning, and why we had to wait and produce what we're doing now. We're actually producing a Webpack plugin with 6.0 to make things work within the Webpack paradigm. So if you see this application and you look down in the developer tools under the network scenario, when I click on a page or a change in page, you'll see that it actually loads the module, the incidents HTML and the incidents JS. Can people please mute if you're not speaking? Thank you. And then click on customers, it loads customers, and so forth. Well, JET has this ability built into it on purpose where it can do lazy loading of, actually asynchronous lazy loading of external resources at runtime. So we can go out, and is my lag still off on this, or am I doing okay? Okay.
It's fine.
So we can go out at runtime. Okay. So we can go out at runtime and actually load up things that may have changed on the environment. So the other area of this is internationalization. So JET ships with 28 different languages and 196 locales. And for a lot of the applications that JET builds, we have to be able to support all those languages. The Fusion Apps products, for instance, the SaaS products, they ship with 32 languages. And we need to be able to change those languages on the fly. Well, in a Webpack world, Webpack expects everything to be bundled or built at build time, packaged at build time. So everything has to be there in those bundles when you go to work with them. And JET didn't work with that. We expected to be able to go outside of those bundles to pull things together. And that's really where the disconnect was, especially with internationalization. You know, if you wanted to actually ship a product with 28 different languages, you would have to bundle all 28 resource string collections into those bundles, and it would be quite a disaster. So what we've done is we've come up with a package that contains, and we're still figuring out exactly how we're going to distribute this package to begin with. I think to start with 6.0, it'll be a .zip that we can allow people to download off of OTN. But eventually we'll probably push it out as our own open source package or our own, another open source project. And what that does is it contains, and let me just drop this over the top. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this zip file and I'm going to unzip it. And I'm going to extract it right over the top of my existing project that I'm working in, this Webpack 600. Okay. So we did that. And if I look now back at my source code, I now have a couple of things added. I have a Webpack config file, which actually will allow my project to work with Webpack. I have a README file that tells you exactly what this new Webpack plugin will do, as well as a new loader called OJ10 or OJL10N loader. And this is designed to actually work or replace the existing JET OJL10 Require.js plugin and allow it to work with Webpack. The instructions on how to set this up is create the template project, which we've already done, build it, and then unzip the zip file, which is exactly where we are now, and then do an npm install of Webpack, the Webpack CLI, and another loader called text loader. I've already done that for just the interest of time here. I've gone ahead and done that. So if I look at my command line now, and I stop the service that I had, now I should be able to just run npx Webpack, or you can really just run Webpack itself. You used to have to run npx, but run Webpack. And what it will do is it actually goes through with this plugin. Now let's look at the config. That's done now. But what it actually does is it looks at all of the OJ modules that we have within our template project here, or within your application, and it creates bundles out of each of those. And then it uses the newest Webpack dynamic imports functionality to be able to pull in those different bundles at runtime. So as before, you saw when we looked at the network traffic here, well, you can't see it now, and I stopped it, so it won't be running, but it was pulling in all of those HTML files, and it was actually making require JS calls and so forth. So if we close that and we go in here now, and I'm going to make one change in my index.html file. You'll notice that it created all these different bundles. That's just normal Webpack kind of thing. And in my index file at the bottom down here, instead of going off to my require.js main location, I am going to just tell this to go off to bundle.js. And we'll comment this part out. I didn't mean to add the close on that. There we go. And save that. So now, if I change into my web folder, and I just run a server, I'm just going to run the HTTP server module. And now when I run this, it just fires up a little web server to run the page. So now when I look at the network traffic on this, when I click on these, you're going to see that it's actually loading those bundles now. And if I do a complete refresh on it, you'll notice that there isn't a require call anywhere in here. We don't use require.js any longer. So I'm making a direct call into the bundle, and I'm using all of Webpack for all of this. So the Webpack module or the Webpack plugin that we're providing allows all of the OJ module stuff to work in a Webpack environment. It also allows you to take the internationalization if you actually have multiple languages in your application, and you can build multiple bundle packs for each of your languages, and that's how it works in Webpack world anyways. And you would build one for German, one for French, one for whatever, and at your server you would decide which one to load at that time on the server side. So I see a lot of questions or a lot of activity in the chat. Anything that I need to know about, Gerjan, or should I keep on going?
It's just that there's lag for some people. I'm not seeing it though, but some are having problems with lag, but that's the main point.
Oh yeah, oh darn it. Okay. Okay, thanks for letting us know. We'll try and slow things down a bit. Hopefully you've been able to see some of this and you can follow along.
So JB, you need to wrap up a little bit as soon as you can with the Webpack so we can move on to the other short presentations.
Yep, Webpack is done. I'm going to jump over to TypeScript. So let me show you really quick what we've got going with TypeScript, because I think TypeScript is actually the more exciting part. So with TypeScript, what we've done is, TypeScript's always been possible with JET. You've been able to use TypeScript with JET just fine, but we didn't produce any of the type definition files. So we have done that. All of the JET framework features, all of the components, everything is now available inside of definition files. You can go out today and go to definitely typed, and you can install the definition files today. So they are already out there. If you go and if you just type npm install at types as you normally would, and then it's Oracle _ Oracle JET, and that would install the type definitions for you. Now today with 6.0, we're producing these indefinitely typed, so you can install them and work with them. We made a decision actually just yesterday morning that starting with JET 6.1, which will come out in January, we are going to distribute the definition files directly with JET itself. So when you install JET, you will have the definition files already there. You will not have to go out to definitely type and install them separately. Today, you have to install them separately in order to work with them. But we're going to distribute them directly starting in 6.1 in January. Now in this, I just want to do this really quick. I already have this project up and running. This is my TypeScript file. This is just a sample application that shows what I'm doing here. And if I run this, I can run two different things, which actually are kind of cool. Is I can run a TSC, which is a TypeScript compile command, and I can throw that into a watch. So I'm going to do a -W on that in order to do a watch. And when I press enter, it just throws that off so that the TypeScript compiler is now waiting and watching for any TS changes so that it can compile things up right away. I'm going to launch a second terminal where I'm going to go back into that same project. And here, I'm actually going to run the JET serve, the OJET serve command. So the OJET CLI. Now what's kind of fun here is that I've got the TypeScript compiler running in a watch mode. So it's looking for TS changes. I've got the JET CLI running, and it's looking for JavaScript changes and HTML changes and CSS changes. It's basically looking for any file change. And if I start making changes in my code in this project, the JET tooling will pick up the change, or the TypeScript compiler will pick up the change in the TypeScript, and it will automatically generate the new JavaScript. The JET tooling will detect the new JavaScript, and it will update the browser. So we've kind of got a nested live reload going on here. So in interest of time, I'm going to kind of shoot forward here a little bit. I'm going to run or import OJS/OJ button. For those that can see what's going on here, you can see the type ahead as I start to type this in. I'm also going to add in an OJS/chart. And I'm going to import a type of OJ chart from that module, from that OJS module. And I'll explain why in just a second. Okay, and that's just telling me that OJ chart is not declared, or is declared but not used, and we'll fix that in a minute. So in this particular file, you'll notice that it's all done in TypeScript itself. It's using classes instead of functions and things like that. We have a constructor, which is setting up our observable. There's a public definition of the something type that is saying that it is a knockout observable. I'm going to add a couple more of these really quick. As a matter of fact, instead of typing, I'm going to cheat and just copy paste a few of these. Again, just in the interest of time. And where is my chart data? Here we go. And I'll show you where I'm getting all this from and why I'm doing what I'm doing in just a second. And I'm going to set up a function here called setChartType as well. Now, I'll wait for a second for this to all kind of come up so that the lag doesn't have a problem here. That's going to be OJ chart there. Okay, so what I've done for those that should be starting to show up here in a second is I've simply copied and pasted from the cookbook the code for the data of a chart. Now, for those that ran a little early, you saw Gerhjan do this. This is just straight out of the cookbook. I didn't make any changes there. But since I'm using TypeScript, if I don't define these or set a type definition for, or a type declaration rather, for some of these variables, it'll come up and say, hey, this property isn't part of this class. So I had to turn around and add these type declarations up at the top as knockout observable arrays. One's returning strings and one's returning objects, and so forth. I wanted to kind of show off a little bit of the typing in here. So I'm grabbing a chart that's over in the HTML, and I'll add that in just a second to the HTML. And that chart is defined as a type of OJ chart. And once I do that, I can do code completion to start to see what the different APIs are associated with that particular type. here I've got type highlighted, and you can see the inline docs are showing up and telling me that I can set that type to line or area, line with area, stock, block, box plot, so forth. So this is what TypeScript kind of and the definitions allow us to do, is to start showing up these types of environments. Now over on the HTML side, I want to just simply add an OJ chart and a button. I'm going to do the button first because I can just do that off my own here. So I'm going to do a button, and I'm going to say on OJ action. I'm going to bind that action to a function called setType and set to line. And then under all this, I'm going to grab a chart, and I'm going to grab that out of the cookbook really quick. I know it's lagging. I apologize. What I'm doing right now, just so you can, is I'm going to the JET cookbook. I'm going to visualizations and charts, and I'm going to a bar chart. And I'm just going to grab out of the HTML, I'm going to grab just that OJ chart element out of there. So I'm going to copy that code out of the cookbook, and I'm going to put that into the HTML of my template here. I'm not going to change the orientation of the stack, so I'm going to delete those two things out of the demo code. And I'll wait for just a second for some lag to catch up on that so you can kind of see what I've done. I've put in a button, I've put in a chart, and these are bound to that group series value and bar group value that you saw in the TypeScript file just a minute ago. So now if I save these, and if the demo gods are with me, I save both those files, you're going to see that the TypeScript watcher saw what was going on, and we noticed also that the TS file changed, the HTML file changed, and it generated a new home.js map and a new home.js. And then the tooling, the command line tooling, updated for me. And you'll now see over here in my sample, I now have a chart. And if I click on the set to line, it'll change everything over to a line chart. So that's what we're doing with TypeScript, is we've got these definition files, and it allows us to interact with them in that way.
That's fantastic. Thank you.
That's it from the demo side, Gertjan.
It's really,
I'll pass it back to you.
Yes, perfect. For me, there was no lag at all, but on this side here in Portugal, by the way, we're sitting in the Link Consulting offices in Lisbon, and this is where I'm sitting, and with a bunch of developers in the room as well. Thank you very much. So these are the highlights of the new features coming up in JET 6.0 being released very soon. And now we're going to switch to a number of small presentations, and I hope they can be even smaller than planned, rather than 5 minutes, about 3, if possible, given the time. Can we first switch to Lewis? And maybe the lag is on my side. Possibly you could share your screen and share your slides, and maybe that will work better than me sharing them. What do you think?
I can try if I know how to share my screen.
All right. If you can't figure it out, I'll share my screen.
Go ahead and share. Yeah, please. I'm not used to using Zoom, so.
Okay.
I don't want to waste that. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll start sharing. And just get the space to where you are. All right. So I'm afraid that will be lag for some people, but JB, just say if we're going too fast. And Lewis, just say next when you want me to switch to a different slide.
Yeah, no problem. I see your screen up, but not my slide yet. There you go. Okay, very quickly, my name is Weir. I'm from Capgemini. I'm the CTO for the Oracle practice in the UK. I also want to thank James and Hugo who contributed to this deck. Next, please. Yes.
Just keep talking. The slide will appear.
Yeah. I'm just going to talk basically about what is the impact of that design in JET, right? I think JET is a beautiful, library, and a framework to write very rich enterprise applications, but it also depends on endpoints. And if those endpoints are not designed the right way, if you're using, for example, the JET common model, which is a very good and elegant way to perform CRUD operations against API REST endpoints, then you're going to end up having to customize and do things that maybe are not ideal. In the screen, you can see right now some, good examples on what to do on the right-hand side, and on the left-hand side, a very poorly designed API where the operation is kind of a get parameter, right? And I've seen this type of examples in the past, and it's not good. And then if you have to deal with this type of APIs in JET, you're going to have to add a lot of customization in your common model, or you're going to have to just use jQuery or Ajax directly, which is not ideal, and you're losing on the benefits of JET. If you go to the next slide, please. So how to prevent this from happening? Just skip all the animation, and I'll very quickly run through this. So if you're familiar with MVVM architectures, right? Basically, what happens is that the client is running on your browser, for example, right? And then the browser is making asynchronous JavaScript calls to endpoints, right? That could be anywhere, right? But a pattern that I have followed, I made in a few projects, right? I wouldn't say hundreds, but at least a couple of projects that has been successful, is the one that you can see on the screen. So we used apiary as a means to mock API endpoints and get the JET developers to try the endpoints, right, before we actually invest more time implementing those endpoints. What this gives us, what we get from this is the ability to get feedback from the JET developers, right, and make sure that those endpoints are not built in a way that's going to add more burden to the experience that's been delivered through JET. And this is important because you can, spend more time, as I said, customizing the common model, or having to use jQuery or whichever other mechanism, right? Because the REST endpoint is simply not modeled the right way, I would say. Another thing that we've done is use Dread, which is a tool within apiary, which allows them to verify that the implementation of the endpoint complies with the mock that was previously designed and that the developers tried out. This is just a very quick tip on how you want to model your endpoints. It's very simple. Use verbs, plurals, right, for your URI resource, like products, for example. You will want to do get and posts against this plural verb, right, like products, right, and then you can use parameters to add search filters. And then if you want to update, you want to do it against, a URI with the plural first and then the ID. It's just a standard way of modeling REST resources. If you go to the next one, please. I think I'm doing well with time, so I'm going fast.
Thank you.
The last slide. And it's just to provide a sample. I'm sure you guys will get the slides. It's just to provide a sample as to how the end-to-end life cycle looks like. Based on my experience, what's a good way of doing this, right? So you can use apiary and API platform to mock your endpoints and try them out through JET. Then you can introduce Dread to make sure that there's consistency from design to implementation. And then you can use, for example, Docker or Kubernetes or Docker to deploy. And then it's also important because if your API relies heavily on endpoints, you don't want them to change, right? Because that will break the UI. And that's my 2 cents in this presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Lewis. Thank you very much. So that was API in less than 5 minutes. So now we're going to switch to Lucas Jellema in the Netherlands. So Lewis was in the UK. Now we're going to the Netherlands, hearing from Lucas Jellema from AMIS about web components. Take it away.
Thank you, John. Here from the Netherlands, live. Talking about JET web components, and that may be a new term for most of you. You are probably familiar with the JET composite components, and until 2 weeks ago that was the name I was using for them. But I've been informed that the name will be changed to JET web components, and that's what I will be presenting on at CodeOne. Because I think the web components are extremely important, and the slides are all over the place. Could you please go to the second slide? Yeah, there we go. In itself, a JET web component is very simple. It's just a reusable building block that's created using all the basic resource types that we know of in JET. So why is it special? Well, because it's an encapsulated block that has a well-defined interface that makes it easy to reuse. And you can just take your web component, package it in a zip file, and share it with any other application, any other team, or any other organization around the world. So the web components are a means of really creating collaboration throughout the community. A JET web component is very easily injected into a JET application. You just take the contents of the zip file, you copy it into the right directory, and then you can start using it in your application, in your pages, just like any normal JET component. In this example, I've created an input smiley component, something that we're all dying for, and that's available as a JET web component. I take it in, for example, in its zip file, and copy it into the two applications that you see on the slide, the yellow one, the pink one. And once the input smiley resources are in my JET application, I can start using the input smiley tag in pages, one page, multiple pages. I can configure the use of each component in each application in each page. Just like regular JET component, only this one hasn't been created by Oracle, created by my own team or by another organization or anyone in the community. Next slide, please. So there we go. So as I said, I think the importance of the JET web components, first of all, is in the ability to reuse, and reuse not just within your team or your organization, but across the community. And I propose that together we create something we could call the JET Web Component Exchange, like a public marketplace where we can offer our components and use components offered by others. But maybe even more importantly, the web components allow us to develop our JET applications in a very structured way. Think microservices. We partition the development of our JET applications into small pieces that have very well-defined interfaces, but are largely encapsulated, that allow us to develop the application as loosely coupled components. Then it would be very interesting to really look at microservices and the way how the UI that's part of the microservices, how all those UIs are tied together into a single merged user interface that's put in front of the end users. That will be part of my presentation at CodeOne. And then I propose a utility for which I've created a first version called the JET Web Component Manager. Think NPM, and you're in the right direction. Using a very simple configuration file, you could use this utility to fetch all resources required for a JET web component from anywhere on the internet and install it right into your JET application, but also allow reloading of JET web components at runtime. So for example, if you configure in your JET web components.json file, you configure the Git URL for your JET web component, then with any change of the sources of the web component, it could be automatically reloaded into your JET application. And especially during development cycles and during demos, that could be interesting, but perhaps you could even use it at runtime. It would allow us to get very close to what we thought we could do with the WSRP portlets, but now with a much better technology that will actually work for us. So in a nutshell, the JET web component should be a crucial component of JET application development.
Thank you, guys.
That's all for me.
Thank you very much. Great insight into JET web components. And can we switch to Soham? Are you here? And can you say something?
Hi. Can you guys hear
me?
me?
Yes, we can.
There he is. Hey, Soham.
Thanks. Hi. My name is Dasgupta, and I'm also from Netherlands, live, like Lucas. So today, in a very short few minutes, I'm going to talk about OGTLM. It's not new. It's there for quite some time right now, and it's open source. You can find it in GitHub, install NPM. What it does, it'll help you in your CI/CD build pipelines for your Oracle JET application. Next slide, please. So I'm going to go through a few important commands in JET CLI space. The first one is absolutely, which is the create. This is going to help to kickstart a JET project from command line, which has several sub commands to help you with. One is the template, which there are 4 right now, which it supports. The 3 of them basically create something inside, and the other one, which is an empty JET project for you. It can also support initializing your hybrid application along with web. The default is always web, but you can also provide a hybrid with it. At the time of creation, you can also provide the platform which you are creating the hybrid app for. And last and most importantly, which Lucas was talking about a few minutes ago, this create command also helps you to create web components. The second, which is quite important for me, and I use it almost every day, is the serve. The serve is actually to live reload and test your JET application locally, which also has several options of starting up your Oracle JET app, either for hybrid app platform or the web. You can also pass a build config, which is quite important when you are actually working on a hybrid app, where you can specify your debug keys to sign the app before you test it, and which is quite important in the hybrid app platform as well, is the destination, where you can actually specify if you want to expose this to an emulator, or you can expose this to a normal web browser. There are 2 from my perspective underrated commands, which are restore and strip. When I was preparing this, Petjan told me you should mention about strip. It's quite helpful because as a developer, when we try a lot of things, at some point of time your source and library are quite a mess, and these 2 commands actually helps you to restore back to the things which you started with and strip off the stuff which you do not need it for your ultimate application. The last one I'm going to talk about is the build, which is quite similar to the serve as well in terms of the parameters you pass. And what extra you can do here is as well the SAS and the theming stuff, where you can actually compile your SAS and create the SCSS at the end. That's all from the JET command line interface stuff.
Thank you.
I'm going to skip the last slide because nobody introduced their CodeOne or Oracle OpenWorld session. So everybody who is coming, please join and enjoy us. Thanks.
Thanks a lot, Soham. So yes, we'll be publishing a agenda, a program for everyone who's interested in JET coming to OpenWorld and CodeOne, and you'll see all the speakers that are speaking here listed there too. So let's move on to Andrejus. How are you doing? And please, let's hear from you.
Hello, guys.
Hi.
I'm calling from Vancouver, Canada, and I would like to present topics I'll be speaking about on Oracle CodeOne conference. So I'm Andrejus, Oracle Developer Champion and Oracle ACE Director, and I'll be speaking about offline toolkit together with my colleague Florin Marcus. And offline toolkit is a product from Oracle which is open source, and it integrates with Oracle JET or with other JavaScript toolkits or frameworks. It's not limited only to Oracle JET. And what it provides, it allows to implement offline functionality. So imagine that when you're offline and you execute some requests, So normally this would fail because you don't have connection to the backend. But with offline toolkit, you could out of the box do the recording for this request. And when when you go online, then those requests will be replayed basically. And offline toolkit is not a black box; it's really open. It comes with a rich API. You can override every action, like you can override the synchronization, you can override the request replay, and you can plug in your custom logic there, you can modify requests, and so on and so on. So if, for example, you get a data conflict in the backend, then you can take this request, modify it with some change indicator, or modify the data and remove the original failed request and insert the copy of that request back to the synchronization queue and force the execution again to try to push it to the backend. Right. And what is the very good and very important thing is that offline toolkit allows transparently for the developer to implement all this functionality, because you could keep coding calls to the backend using jQuery or using JET model or collection API in the same way as you would not, let's say, use this offline toolkit. It handles all the recording and the replay in background. So you just execute regular call to the backend, and if you are in offline mode, then it gets recorded. If you are in online mode, it just goes to the server. And also, if you are updating data, removing data, or in offline mode, you can provide your own custom implementation to handle patch and post, and then you could update local storage with the changes, and user could continue working offline. So if user updates some record, you just update the data in local storage, and if later user executes search functionality while he's offline, then he'll be working against this updated data that was not yet synchronized back to the backend. And at the moment when user goes online, then his changes will be pushed to the backend side. Right, so I have already posted a couple of blog posts on this topic with the detailed sample application, which is available on the GitHub, and I'll post the link to the chat, to the group chat right now.
Perfect.
And yeah, after the session on OpenWorld, hopefully I'll post more information on this topic and the slides as well.
Thank you.
So thanks.
That was the fastest presentation ever on offline support. Thank you very much. Thank you for sharing. So do we have Simon available to tell us about mobile architecture briefly with JET?
Yes, I'm here now. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, perfectly.
Good stuff. Right. Well, welcome. I'm live in the UK. This is a Eurovision moment, isn't it? Where I said, I'm looking at a beautiful sunset out of the window, and everybody come here. Whether you believe it or not, I don't know. So, this is a little bit of an overcap of some of the stuff we've been doing with mobile apps over the last year, since the start of last year. For those of you who've not had anything to do yet with the mobile side of JET, really the way I see it is there's 2 or 3 additional things you maybe don't get involved with too much if you're doing a web browser-based application. So first one is Cordova. I'm sure you've all heard of it, and probably bumped into it one way or another before, but Cordova is the layer that allows us to access the mobile devices hardware, so cameras and location and this kind of stuff. And I'm talking here about hybrid mobile apps here. So these are apps that run in a kind of, if you like, a self-contained, I think of them as like a little packaged up web page, web application, interactive web application. And so the key thing that we've got is we've got packaging, we've got Cordova, and then as Andrejus said a moment ago very conveniently, the other thing you probably want for your mobile apps is some kind of offline capability. Clearly it isn't essential, but in terms of user experience, if nothing else, I would say that a good proportion, if not most, mobile applications, you'd expect to have some kind of offline capability, even if it's only for the read-only stuff. You know, if you think of your Twitter client, you wouldn't expect to have to be online on 3G or 4G all the time to be able to look at your Twitter client. So if we just look very briefly at the Cordova architecture, wherever it was. So all it does is it goes between the different layers. So it gives you a support from JavaScript in your application, your web application, through to the native APIs on the device. So that makes it cross-platform. And I'll be talking at CodeOne about those 2 boxes on there I'm showing you are 2 plugins that we had to write, or one that we're using natively and one that we customized. Okay, and then on the final slide, the application itself, the third one of these is running on in stores, 200 or so stores on Honeywell Android devices, and their big feature really, apart from being ruggedized, so you can drop them from about 6 feet or something onto concrete apparently, I haven't tried it, but their big thing is they scan barcodes very effectively. They've got a laser scanner on the front of them, so we need Android to talk, we need CodeOver to talk to that, and we've also got these thermal printers which you can see on the right, which again are kind of ruggedized printers, and they talk over Bluetooth, and we use CodeOver again to talk to those.
Thank you.
So that's it.
So much.
That's me. Come and find out more.
Thank you,
Okay.
Simon. Fantastic. And of course, last but definitely not least, from Griffiths Waite, we have Mark Simpson to tell us about their process moving from forms to JET. Mark, are you there? You're on mute if you're talking.
Can you hear me? Is that okay?
There he is. There he is.
So I'm going to finish, if you do next slide, Gertrude, I'm just going to finish fairly quickly with just making it a bit tangible of a real project that we did for a client. So we're doing this project for a little part of the UK called the Isle of Man, which is a principality sitting there between Liverpool and Ireland. And they've had a form system for 20 plus years. I'm sure a number of you are working with customers who've still got some fairly legacy systems. This manages all the benefits for the Isle of Man. And they were looking to keep that form system and upgrade it and keep a lot of the logic, but sustain that solution for another 10 years. So we chose JET. 4 years ago, we looked into it and we were going to rewrite this in ADF. But when the project actually came around to being approved, we put in a proposal to change this to being JET. And they have now selected JET as their primary toolkit. So in doing that, moving from client-server to even server-side, let alone kind of client-based JavaScript, sorry, the slide. So if you go previous slide, Gertrude, please.
I can't get back there.
The number of challenges.
I'm trying. I can't get
okay. I'll be quick. We had to decide what to do with the REST implementation. So for that, we wanted to be able to do an API first, resource-based design, but still leverage a lot of code in the database. So we chose Node.js for that, so that we weren't tied to the kind of the database structures, but we could use the Oracle driver for Node to interact with the database. We had some challenges around kind of security. How would we secure these API endpoints in the ADF world? We could secure the ADF application, and then we could talk to the back-end services within the network, whereas this was opening up the endpoints to the client side. So on that, we had to come up with a solution where we could use JSON Web Tokens, initially with basic authentication, but we're actually looking and considering go with that as well. We had to make sure when the user connects to the database, we could pass the user context and we could actually execute the database code as the user logged in, not as the service account that Node was using for that. And we also had to make sure that we could kind of deal with typical form things that we got for free and you get for free with ADF if you use an ADF BC, lock-in, row concurrency, etc. So all of these were part of our challenges, part of the solution. The project went very well. We focused a lot on reusable components and made good use of web components, so that we had standard LOVs, tailored search, all of the things that our forms and ADF developers would be used to using toolkit components we could recreate with JET. We did a lot of work on the DevOps pipeline to make sure that we could stand up new environments, we could run our tests, a lot more automated tests in this world than we had with our previous ADF or forms applications. And one of the really outstanding items was the user experience. They were worried when they were moving from a system that they'd used for 20 years to a modern web application, yet the user experience of the JET application, how responsive it was, how easy it was to use, all of the UI widgets that we could build in that you've probably seen cycling through in these screens, made it a lot more cleaner application to use, so much so that the users absolutely loved it and really wanted us to build in some UX design improvements into this project. So it went from being just a like-for-like replacement to more a product that would evolve over time. So I think the results are very good. We'll introduce some tips from that project at OpenWorld.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Mark.
Yeah.
And this kind of brings us to the end of the meetup. It's been very rushed. It's been very quick. And I think the hour we spent before is something we should continue doing, that we spend an hour before the meetup just kind of hacking and discussing, and we use the meetup time itself for these presentations. So we've kind of rushed through different things. You should have gotten a flavor of what's coming up in JET from JB, TypeScript and Webpack in particular. You've heard about offline support, about web components, about the command line interface, about hybrid development, about migration from other technologies like forms. So we'd like to thank you very much for attending the meetup, and I hope you enjoyed it. Please provide feedback, please tweet and so on. But really, before wrapping up, there are a couple of bonus announcements very quickly. The first is that Soham, who you've heard from Capgemini, together with Ruben Rodriguez from Avantic in Spain, are working on a book about the Oracle Cloud, which includes chapters on JET. And Dan Curtis from Griffiths Waite. Dan, are you here?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right.
Just in the room.
Perfect. Can you tell us a little bit about the book that you have coming up?
Yeah, so we've heard a few things about existing solutions using Oracle JET. Obviously, this book's tailored more towards new Oracle JET developers, and it takes a journey from not knowing anything about JET at all. So this could be existing JavaScript developers, maybe ADS developers, Web Center developers, and takes them through a step-by-step guide, which goes through the theory behind JET, but it also builds up a fully functional enterprise-like application. And that's the way that the book will pan out, and by the end of it, the reader will have this fully functional application.
Perfect.
So that's it in a nutshell. It takes in consideration web components, theming, all these concepts that JET provides. And it'll be available early next year.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot. And I've been reviewing this book, and it's great. It's a fantastic way to get started with JET. So I look forward to having that for real. Final announcement. So a lot of people on this call and thousands around the world have completed the first MOOC we did, which was at oracle.com/go/jet, and it was really aimed at beginners. And what we want to provide a lot more of is resources for people who are further along. So the first topic that we want to address in a new MOOC aimed at more advanced topics is web components, and which several people I'm sure are familiar with under the name of CCA components. So there is a new MOOC, and that registration page is live since today. So if you go to this page, you can already register. The MOOC takes 2 weeks. It's a lot shorter than the previous one. It's more focused on a particular topic. So please go to this page and sign up. The first run of this MOOC will be halfway through November. So after OpenWorld, you'll be able to actually take this MOOC, and it will run again in January. And so please sign up and give us feedback as well on what other topics you'd like to have focused on for MOOCs. Maybe we can do a MOOC on the theme builder, for example, or specifically on REST endpoints or data backends. Give us feedback, and we'll provide the resources that you need. So with that, thanks again for attending this meetup. Please just keep following us on Twitter at Oracle JET. Sign up for the MOOC, and see you at the next meetup. Thank you very much.